The Maverick Mindset podcast was conceived from my hunger for personal growth. By inviting guests onto the show that exhibit all the traits of a true maverick, such as resilience, courage, success, failure, and purpose, I get to hear their unique entrepreneurial life journeys and share with you, my listeners, key learnings, advice, and perspectives that we can all apply to our lives. My guest today is Sheyi Liss Carew, the CEO and founder of Oculus Group, a consulting firm that works with large multinationals on big projects. Sheyi is a highly engaging and informed character, and he tells me that Oculus crafts clever solutions for tricky business conundrums, something all entrepreneurs, I'm sure, can relate to. In the podcast, we have a thought-provoking and lively discussion covering topics such as the importance of sleep, how to deal with noise and distractions, business skills, particularly how to empower those in your team, and some of the rules of life, such as the virtue of patience and why good things take time, a concept that certainly resonates with me. Sheyi shares his love of gardening as a way of grounding himself and getting perspective on his day-to-day existence. And Sheyi struck me as being a deep person with a karmic approach to life, someone who understands emotion and ego. This podcast really will challenge your thinking and will serve to illuminate your own perspectives. And now I bring you Sheyi Liss Carew. So Sheyi, I really appreciate you spending time today. I've wanted to record with you for a while now, but I know we've both been busy, you with family, me with family as well. And it's great that as a fellow freeman of the company of entrepreneurs, we share a lot in common.
Very true.
And you've got kind of a fascinating career, and obviously I've done the intro on it, on the video just prior. So just in terms of where your business is currently and what you do, just give me some highlights of where you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, sure. I mean, firstly, Rick, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But yeah, like you rightly said, at the minute, I am steering my company, Oculus Consulting, to more or less become a leader in the strategy and process improvement space,
Sure.
Across a number of sectors, but we've really streamlined our area of expertise to the energy and utilities sector, covering clients in the UK, Middle East, and Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, and we literally this year actually just won an opportunity with a client in Australia and the United States. So it's quite an interesting, from a time zone perspective. That's why I may have bags, and I was meant to travel, like I did mention. So shuffling all those regions can be a nightmare. But yeah. So that's basically, what I'm doing at the minute.
And just remind me, how did you get started as an entrepreneur?
My journey is very different to a lot of people, So I studied here in the UK, 3 degrees. My first degree was in computer systems engineering. Yeah. And we all, like any student would do, I wanted to get an internship to work for a company. At the time, I got an interview with Intel, who make the chips for computers. I'm sure we're all familiar with them. Yeah. But they turned me down because I had I didn't have enough experience, and I thought that was strange. In my mind, I was like, well, that's not fair, because I am a student. I'm trying to get the experience, and it kind of put me off, and then as a result of that was when I founded my very first company here in the UK, at the time, Oculus Enterprise, and then that was what gave birth to what we have today.
And, as all entrepreneurs, what I like to ask is, how do you kind of manage your daily mindset? Because the journey business takes us on is like a roller coaster. It's constantly up and down, no matter how great the business is. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, it always interests me how individual entrepreneurs set themselves up to battle through the emotional roller coaster.
It can be challenging, it is challenging, not can be challenging. And, one thing about me is from a mindset perspective is I try to be positive. You know, like anything in life, there's always going to be issues. You know, I mean, one of my hobbies is gardening, and this year these plants will bloom, next year they wouldn't bloom. It doesn't mean they're not good. It's seasonal. There's a time for everything.
Cool.
So I try to, you know, be positive and ultimately do my best.
Yeah.
You know, and once I have done my best to my capacity, I'm happy. I don't put pressure on myself by what my peers may be doing, you know, what my competitors are doing. No, once I feel I've done the best I possibly can, and I'm genuinely honest about it to myself,
that's very good.
You know, that really is what keeps me going.
Because what strikes me about you is you've got a very karmic sense around you, and that would resonate with me in terms of you having that ability not to beat yourself up, because some of us drive ourselves mad and want to do more, and why didn't this happen, why didn't that happen, but you've got that ability to kind of let go of things if they're not serving you.
And I think that you know, sometimes again it depends on what you want to achieve. Some people it's money, some people it's fame, some people it's name, you know, from a fame perspective. Some people it's just power. You know, I would say I have an element of all of those. You know, but you know, I also, there's something about patience as well. So as crazy as it sounds, you know, sometimes obviously I think in the last podcast we had, or talk we had rather, you know, I mentioned the thing about, you know, using my Bible as my mentor and my guide on how I live my life. Another thing I do is my hobby, which is gardening, like I mentioned. I learn from the plants. You know, you have to be patient because it's not every day a flower or a tree might fruit. You know, you might fruit this year, you might not fruit the next year. I mean, it doesn't mean, you know, it's not a good tree. It's just, it's not right. It's not the right time. You know, but what matters is you're intentional about it. You're doing what you have to do. You're still going out. You're still doing. You're still, you know, from a service perspective, you're meeting clients. You're having conversations. You're sending your profile, your company profile, CVs out to clients. You're proactively doing things. And, you know, being positive in the sense of eventually it would work, as opposed to feeling defeated or feeling, you know, you don't have the capacity, or, you know, stressing too much, because, you know, there's an issue around mental health as well. You know, you have to balance that out. Now I am guilty of it. It's happened to me before where I was completely burnt out because I felt, why isn't business necessarily going how I wanted to? But I still had to keep pushing, and eventually was able to overcome that by just being patient and learning from my plans, as crazy as it sounds.
So you really learned your way through that stressful trigger. You know, and you know, so sometimes, you know, I find, again, you know, everybody is different. You know, people have, you know, hobbies or things that interest them that help deter them from their day-to-day stress, you know, and don't take those things for granted, you know, but at the same time, don't, you know, there are a lot of noisemakers out there. You know, a lot of things to distract you, a lot of people that come across like they know what they're doing, they have it all figured out, but many don't. You know, and you know, I'll be quite frank with you, Rick, because obviously I'm Nigerian, British, you know, with the whole Dutch heritage, so I'm quite you know, you know, how would I describe it, like from multiple regions, right? In the UK, there's a lot of, we call it packaging. People really present themselves to be what they are not. So you need to be able to look through all of that. You know, but again, ultimately, that boils down to you really knowing who you are and understanding you're adding value. And from a financial or power or whatever your inspiration might be for entrepreneurship, it really boils down to you knowing who you are and how you're adding value to people. And what motivates you?
So it actually changed a year ago, because since we had triplets, you know, I was good.
That's a big,
you know?
that's a big motivation.
That's a big major
motivation to be up in the morning.
It is actually. You know, I mean, prior to me having kids, because I'm sure there's some people who have kids and some who don't. It was, you know, I think you know, it's adding value to people, seeing people happy, and not just people but clients. You know, fixing problems. You know, especially, so I thrive when people bring tasks that they think are impossible to achieve, you know, and I make it happen from a program management perspective or a consulting standpoint, more or less, you know, and that's my biggest pride, you know.
So it's people, really, and what you get back from what you give. Okay. And that's changed since you've had a family?
No, it's changed in the sense of since they have come, it's a different type of motivation. It's like, you know, even everything I'm doing now is no longer for myself or my wife.
Yeah.
It's for their kids.
Yeah.
You know, so like I call it like generational wealth type thing.
Yeah.
So it's like planning for their own kids.
Yeah.
You know, so like what structures am I putting in place? So like, you know, Oculus Consulting, how am I now trying to make it a lot better for them, or put in place the structures to make them take over it? So like, for instance, factoring in the trends today, like sustainability, you know, or like being renewable, or, you know, applying various technology solutions to what we're doing, you know, because it's their thing, right? If that makes any sense.
Do you have like daily routines or rituals to get yourself in the right mindset for getting through the day? Is there certain habits you have that you use for business?
So the first one is, this might sound crazy, but sleep is very important. I don't mess with my sleep. I don't believe in that whole you're walking around the clock. That's, in my opinion, nonsense. Your body needs sleep. You need to rest. Your brain needs to work. I mean, my type of career is heavy brain power, right?
Yeah,
like, you know, because I have to reason, I have to be strategic, so there's a lot of brain power with what I do. So I don't compromise on sleep. I try to at least get 6 to 8 hours every day.
Yeah. Do you manage to do that?
Yeah.
With 3 kids?
Funny thing is, you know, so that's another thing, you know, I find it's an excuse when people say, when people say, oh, I have a kid, I can't do this. Again, prioritize what's priority, if you know what I mean, you know, make time for what really matters, you know, and if you have the right support system around you, things would work. So I'm not as stressed as I was without kids, you know, I'm a lot more relaxed. I have time to travel. You know, last year we had a client in the UK, a refinery. I was literally there Monday to Thursday.
Yeah.
You know, in most cases, I didn't need to, but I was able to, despite having triplets. So there's still room to do things.
You've got to make
it work. Yeah. You know, so another thing I do to help me sort of be calibrated is I'm quite I don't want to say I have OCD, but you know, my environment needs to be a little bit calm, relaxed, tidy for me to operate, to be like at my optimal.
So instead of having a world of chaos around you, you try and you kind of zone into an environment that's in order. Yeah.
Once things are like in place from my office setting or the house, it really makes a big difference. You know, again, I think, you know, that's what works for me doesn't necessarily mean work for everybody. You know?
It's a good thing. So I think in business generally and in life, it can, especially with kids, it can be very chaotic most of the time, and you do need somewhere that's almost like a shrine or an escape,
like your own space,
which gives you that kind of comfort. And what, you know, the way the kind of world is shaping and developing, certainly at the moment there's some probably scary things going on. What do you think are the biggest challenges facing us today as individuals?
I think a number of things. One is heavily around data, and when I mean data, information overload. You know, there's so much information out there. Everybody is an expert. Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody is a mentor and advisor. You know, there's so much out there on social media, and it's a huge concern because you're not really able to filter out what's facts and what's not necessarily facts. You know, then also technology is really advancing quite quickly. You know, I mean, we all know about AI. You know, but everybody is talking about AI, but there's a lot more. You know, like the project I make an oil and gas platform completely digital, so we call it unmanned platform. You know, so it's all remote operated, nobody needs to go on the platform, a lot of benefits. And why I made that reference, that example, is there's something we refer to as a digital twin, you know, Internet of Things. So these are very techie terms, but these are things that are happening. You know, last week I was at a conference with Lord Mayor where we're talking about the ETDA, which is an act that was recently passed. You know, that's late last year. You know, just 3 pages, so I highly recommend you all go have a read. But it's how they can sort of make digital contracts legit contracts, if you know what I mean, and enforceable, more or less. You know, and for me, that's the beginning of how that sort of drives into the concept of digital twin. So to answer your question directly, technology is moving at a speed that we've never seen before. AI is constantly improving, and you know, we all need to jump on that bus, if I could use that word, you know, otherwise we'll be left behind.
And you're very much, by the sounds of it, a person that embraces change and technology specifically.
I think in life everybody should. You know, I don't believe in that.
It's inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to. And again, I'll use my plants as an example. You know, if this year they are not blooming in this particular part of the flower, you know, they tend to adjust themselves and face the light to grow better.
Yeah.
You know, so we almost adjust.
It's a great analogy, actually, when you think about nature can teach us certain things to do the things the correct way.
Exactly. And then, you know, we are here being so strict with ourselves for no reason. You know, I'll call it being stubborn, and sometimes we let ego and pride take control, which shouldn't really be the case. You know,
And what do you think defines you as a person? If there's a word or a term, what is it?
I would say very positive, but not just being positive for the sake of being positive, but positive with a track record of success.
Yeah.
You know, from a delivery perspective. And that's partly because one of my strengths is bringing out the best in people.
That's probably one of your best business skills then, to get the most out of people. And I think some entrepreneurs are very good with people, some aren't. And what do you use to do that, to get the best out of people? Do you have a format? Do you have a management style? How do you, because people are different, right? So you have to approach it differently with individuals, I guess.
Yeah, so I think for me it's something around empowering, you know, and letting people know they have what it takes to do what they have to do. You know, so for instance, I'll give you some examples of some projects I have been on. You know, like, you know, some of these projects could be quite significantly large from a resource perspective, you know, but you have some of the leaders who don't actually trust the people they are spending a lot of money bringing on board on the projects. And in my mind, I'm like, you know, one of the things you need to do to fix this problem is trust the people you're paying so much money for to deliver. Because if you're not trusting them, you're going to now start micromanaging them, and that becomes a problem, and you're going to make them be a version of you. You know, the beauty is in our diversity and our multiple various skill sets. That's what makes us reach.
And it's the success of any big business. It is a successful business.
And it's also what makes the garden look pretty. Imagine having just one type of plant.
It'd be boring,
it wouldn't work, right? You know, so it's all about, you know, having different types of skill sets, different opinions, different views, you know. But what's more important as a leader is ensuring all those things align to the common objective. You know, so what are you trying to do as a business? I mean, one of the basic things we tell startups we sort of mentor or consult for is a very important thing to do is your vision and mission. You know, as a business, what are you looking to do? What are you looking to achieve? Where do you see yourself in the next few years? And everything you're doing should sort of align to that goal. Everybody you bring on board should align to that goal.
And you find that the very fact of sharing that knowledge with the troops, let's say, or the team, gives them the right perspective to know what you're aiming for.
Correct, yes. But there's an element of constant reminding, you know, because we're humans, we all get distracted, you know. You know, it's just like you constantly have to prune your plants to make them be in shape, you know. You constantly have to remind them, enforce them, you know, work on the team to build that bond together, collectively understand where we're heading. And as a leader, you carry them all along, if that makes any sense. You know, as opposed to just being sat there, you think you've brought in the best and you expect everybody to do things the way you want it to be done, but it's not really done. You know, just even added to that as well, I would say, and this is something I'm very convinced of in the whole world from a management consulting standpoint, the biggest problem we have in the world today is communication. Even though we've got a smartphone in our hand that can communicate for free with virtually anybody and anything. I mean, even with the AI, I mean, Samsung just launched a phone that would even translate from a language to another language as you speak in real time. But the point is, we are not communicating as we should. There's a lot of assumptions. You know, one person saying A might not necessarily mean the same A in your standpoint. You know, I mean, the other day, I'll give you a good example, a silly example, but, you know, if you have a lot of followers, Nigerian followers as well, they'll laugh at this. There's something we call the Nigerian time. So for my kid's first birthday, we put on the invitation 1 p.m. Or I think 12 p.m. we put. And then at 12 p.m., you know, we had a few of my friends who were UK based, like British, turn up at 12. And then he messages me, Sheyi, it looks like we're too early. I'm like, yeah, man, you should come at 3 o'clock. That's like, he was like, Sheyi, you should have mentioned the Nigerian time. Now, the reason I say this is, to us, you know, if you're having events when you put 12, we turn up late. It's just normal. It's not really frowned upon. Yeah, really? Yeah. It's not really like, it's so crazy, but that's a really bad example. And not necessarily something to be proud of, but that's just from a culture perspective, how it is. Another example is, you have some friends from Greece, if they give you food, you go dine in their house and you don't finish the food, it's kind of frowned upon. Or if you burp, it's like, oh, wow, you enjoyed the food, so culture and, but to some people, it's like, how dare you? And I think we need to, as a society, we need to learn to understand everybody is different.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different way of thinking. And if you're not sure about certain things, ask questions.
Yeah.
We're also worried about offending people and stepping on toes. And even though we don't understand.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think what you find is when you actually get time to listen to someone and spend time with them, it breaks down all kinds of barriers. It develops trust. I mean, in business, trust is probably the foundational pillar, the most important one.
Yeah.
Because without that, we only really trade with people we like still, and those human communication skills have been developed over tens of thousands, if not millions of years.
This is true.
And I think a lot now, is because we're very electronic and remote, and we can use our phone and we can use Zoom and Microsoft Teams to communicate, you lose some of those nuances of communication.
You do. Yeah, I mean, so in our consulting space, so what we specialize in within the program delivery perspective is what we refer to as process optimization, which is very much, so that's the transformation side of things, which is very much around people skill, and having to do that remotely, it can be challenging. Because like you said, there's a lot you learn from just, the reaction, the way they look at you, movement of fingers, hands, arms, all those things help feed decisions. But the truth is, you can argue from now till tomorrow, this is going to be the future.
Yeah, there's no, I think the days of everyone going to an office every day are gone. And I think all good businesses will somehow find the right balance to get the right dynamic in that team working. And some of it really does, you need, I think when humans are together, and this is what someone was telling me last week, is there's a creative dynamic that surfaces when people are physically together.
Absolutely.
And you do lose a lot of that. However, we all know as busy people, having some peace and quiet locked away in a room on your own, you do actually get more done. You
can get a lot more done. But you see, the problem as well with that is people now lose touch on really managing your time. So for instance, if you let's look at people who go into the office 9 to 5, little things like, I'm going for a cigarette break, or I'm going to the bathroom, or I'm going to grab a coffee. These are little things you're doing to move around, exercise a little, and just interact with other people. Working remotely, all that is gone. And people are spending a lot of longer hours doing things on the system. So yes, you can argue they're getting a lot more done, but people are being burnt out quicker. And the turnaround will be a lot more. Will be a lot higher, I find.
And in terms of other people in the business world, or people that have come into your orbit over time, who do you admire?
But my brother and I were having, so my brother is the architect, and we're having a conversation around mentors. Was it my brother or a friend? Yeah, he was also another friend, a friend who's an architect. Yeah, we're talking about mentors and people I admire to and I look up to, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to be like you. I honestly don't have anybody like that. I'm not particularly blown away. I mean, maybe it's because I'm Nigerian and I was born in Nigeria and I've seen a lot of amazing things over there. I'm not, even being in England, nobody really blows my mind, if you know what I mean. If there's anyone that I would say I have seen and I admire a lot of qualities, maybe his leadership style, the way he brings people together. I mean, he's a world leader, the king of Qatar, His Excellency Al Thani. I really admire how he does that, and he's very humble about it, and he's a very solid person. I would say, but ultimately my go-to for inspiration, for guidance, for wisdom is my Bible.
So you use religion as a grounding force. And I wouldn't say religion by going to church every Sunday and singing out loud and doing everything super duper, but just
okay, fine. In the Bible, it says in the Bible, God created the heaven and the earth, and then He spent 7 days creating it all. Every day He looked back and was happy at what He did, and then at the very end He rested, right? So that's how I live my life. Every time I achieve something, I look back at it, I learn for next time, how can I make it better before I move on to the next thing. And then when I finally do all of this, I make sure I rest. I make sure there's time for me and my family.
Okay.
From the Bible, nobody.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess what you're touching on there is a big theme we see pervading today our lives, which is mental health, and how people declutter your mind and stop the noise and hassle in your head and actually keep control and perspective. And you've just kind of trotted it out in terms of how you deal with it. I think everyone's got different, let's say, coping mechanisms, but we do need to be able to turn ourselves off and reset.
Some people do this by yoga, some people do this by going for walks, runs. Do what makes you switch off. My ultimate one for switching off is gardening. Like I was telling my wife earlier, when I'm gardening or cleaning, I'm in a different zone.
Is that because you're in nature, and they say that nature is a very good leveler to bring you back to a center point?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not thought deep about it, but maybe I just really enjoy the presence of being there with the plants and I don't know, just the journey, I guess, with them. Because you plant them, you see them grow, you see what happens, the first year, the second year, how they fruit, the flowers, how the flowers are big this year, small next year, so I think all that just cuts me out of the world. Like there could be an explosion down the road, I wouldn't even know. I'm just literally there with them.
It's a means to take your mind off day-to-day work and normal day-to-day activities. If there'll be listeners listening who are looking to set out their own, on their own journey of a business and strike out as an entrepreneur. What advice would you give someone who's wanting to make that jump?
This is best answered depending on the person's age group and where they are in life. Are you a student? Are you already working? Do you already have your business? I would say, be intentional. Make sure you add value. It should always be value driven. Like every successful business today is fixing a problem. What problem are you fixing? Amazon is from the comfort of your sofa, you can get delivery instantly. Apple iPhones, you're using the best smartphones very well. They say that. I think Samsung's the best, but that's another conversation. But Apple is like making life very easy. Health information, people have been saved by their Apple watches, and so many other big businesses fixing problems and adding values to people's lives. So as entrepreneurs, you really need to think about things like that. And then be patient. Like Amazon didn't start in 1 year.
No, it's 99, wasn't it? We do forget how old some of these businesses are, right?
Exactly.
I think Facebook's 20 years old now, isn't it? You never think that. But
then again, even this 20 years, we're saying Facebook, there was a lot that happened before the boom, if you know what I mean. His family, he started off with his family, his friends, so we need to embrace all that culture. And I find, especially this generation, I need to raise stupid amount of money, because you've thought of a business that you think makes sense. And no, be patient, test it out. I've been running Oculus now for close to 20 years. I think 20 years now, over 20 years actually. Because I created the logo back then in Nigeria. So for some time now, it's still not where I want it to be. My plan is for it to obviously be very present.
That kind of brings me on to probably the final question is what ambitions do you have now for the next phase of your life?
Ambition with this particular business is to position Oculus, to sort of be, to be at the vanguard of global management sort of consulting, expanding our international presence. I think that's quite key for me, and fostering a culture of innovation, that would most importantly inspire the next generation of consultants. That's very key for me, because obviously, like I said, I have kids. and I want it to align with what they have to do. So from a sustainability thing, this is why for us now, every client we get, every project we win, we plant a number of trees. You know, we have aspiration to hit like 1,000 trees by the end of this year. You know, I mean, last year we got to plant around 100 trees across the world. You know, not much, but it's something. You know, so factoring in sustainability into what we do, you know, and then of course, you know, adapting to technology.
Sure.
You know, utilization of AI, you know, data, and yeah, making things happen.
It's been great talking to you today. Really
Thank you so much,
I mean,
Rick.
I love the garden analogy.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to.
No, I think as a metaphor, it's quite powerful, and also talking about your leadership style and how you know you kind of bring people through, and some of those other wider things about karma and how you have the ability to not get too rattled by things that are probably beyond your control. So
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. You are a true maverick, Sheyi, and we will speak again.
Not much, Rick. It's been a pleasure.
Really, really good.
Yeah, thank you. All right.